Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 22 of the Dads on the Rocks podcast. If you're listening to this on the day that it's released, it is March 1st. Spring is right around the corner, and because I'm in a completely new state with new trees and new flowers, I get to find out if I have pollen allergies. Today's guest is a guy who I happen to stumble upon in a dad's Facebook group. We've never spoken before, but I love to meet new dads and hear the perspective of another dad just trying to make sense of the world with kids. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steven Challacombe. Steven, as always, we begin with a toast. Today I am having, because now that I live in North Carolina, a local brew from Gizmo Brew Works. It's called Dynamis. It's an Imperial IPA, and it is awesome. Steven, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you're drinking tonight?
Sure, absolutely. And thanks again for having me on. And I'll start off with so I'm having a nice dark lager from Smart Mouth Brewing Company, which is brewed right here in Virginia. And it's called Boom Shakalaka.
Nice.
I haven't had one before, but I would 1,000%, buy it again. So wife Katie, two kids, Graceland and Jack. They're 6 and 4 respectively. Currently enlisted in the United States Navy. I hit my 10-year point last fall.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could say I'm kind of halfway to retirement. We'll see how that goes, but right now that's pretty much it.
Nice. Really quick, if anybody is interested in a Dads on the Rock shirt or being a guest on the show, email me on the show. I guess, well, it's me. Dads on the Rocks podcast at gmail.com. And remember to follow Dads on the Rocks on Facebook and Instagram. And the only way to get one of these really cool Dads on the Rocks koozies, right there, Steven, you at home can't see, but is to be a guest on the show. I'm going to be sending Steven his own probably tomorrow, and I'll get with you later to get your mailing address and all that stuff. But if you want your own Dads on the Rocks koozie, the only way to get one is being a guest on the show. So if you want to be a guest on the show, that's a fun little present for you. So, Steven, let's get right into it. I don't really know much about you because, like I said earlier, I found you on a Facebook group. I put a line out there to see if anybody wanted to be on the show, and you jumped at it. And I was really excited because I love meeting new dads. And with the exception of one other person on the show, you're the only other person that I've had zero experience with, and I don't know anything about you, and I'd like to change that. So you did mention to me before that your two kids, both of them are special needs, and
Correct.
I don't have really any experience with having kids having special needs or any friends that do. So I would like to learn a little bit about that. So would you say that your life is different from any dad friends or anything that you any other people with kids that you know of, with your kids being having special needs rather?
I think ultimately yes. There's absolutely going to be a slight difference. And I actually don't think it's a very major difference, right? Like I think every dad out there, and moms too, absolutely, but every dad out there is just kind of going out there and they're winging it, right? Like that's what I'm doing, is I'm winging it. But yeah, so there's a couple extra things we have to do for our kids, like we briefly spoke about before, like
before I hit the record button. Sorry, everybody, I did it again.
Oh, that's all right. It happens.
It's going to be my thing going forward. I'm going to have to record twice all the time now.
It happens to the best of us. But yeah, you mentioned pretty much just packing up a normal diaper bag or whatever it be, to get out of the house, and we just bring some extra medication because I guess maybe I should rewind. So our daughter Graceland has autism, and she also has a diagnosis of epilepsy. So when we go out of the house, we carry just some emergency medication, right? Like it's not really. I mean, I wouldn't want to say it's not a big deal, but it doesn't really add any extra weight. No pun intended.
Yeah, like I kind of equate it to like if your child is diabetic, you go out, you throw an EpiPen in the diaper bag. Like you have those certain things that you just go out prepared in the world for, with the tools that you would need should the need arise.
Right. Yeah. 1,000%.
So we talked a little bit before about I asked you before, and that's when I realized I didn't start recording, but you guys did not plan for the first pregnancy. Like you guys had an idea that you wanted kids, but it wasn't something that you planned out, right?
Right. Yeah.
Was the second child the same way?
Yeah. Yeah, so both of them, like you'd indicated, both of them weren't necessarily planned, right? Like we absolutely enjoyed and flirted with the idea of having kids, and both just, thankfully happened.
Yeah. How long were you guys married before Graceland? I'm gonna learn the names. Graceland was born.
Uh, oh yeah, now I'm in trouble. So I was
And this
20.
isn't a test. I'm just curious.
Oh, it'll be a test. My wife will listen. She's like, "Oh, you got it wrong." So I was 25, I think, when we had Graceland. So we would have been married for 5 years, give or take.
Oh, okay. Wow. You guys got is she, and I don't mean to be weird, but is she like
No, no,
roughly
no.
the same age as you?
2 years under. So she's, yeah, 28.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it sounds, yeah.
Wow. So she was 18 and you were 20 when you guys got married.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, yeah, it's not that far off. I think my wife and I were, because she's like 6 or 8 months older than me, I think, but I think we were 23.
mhm.
And even now, thinking back, I feel like, man, we were so young
Yeah,
when we got married.
we say it all the time. These crazy Facebook memories, like, oh man, look at us 10 years ago. Yeah, it's wild.
So you mentioned you were in the military, in the Navy rather.
Yep.
How has like, I mean, you're active military and are you based out of Virginia, I guess?
Correct. Yeah, right here in Norfolk.
Okay. How do you feel like your uh dad parent life has been affected by being in the military? Like I don't know, like do you have like a regular 9 to 5 or do you go have to go away for a while? Like how what is that like?
So thankfully, right now and for the past 3.5 years, I've been on shore duty. So the Navy has sea and shore rotations that typically, depending on the person, vary from 3 to 4 years. But
Oh, okay.
so again, thankfully for, I think maybe even close to the last 4 years, I've been home, right? So I typically have been working a 9 to 5 job. Um, so I've gotten to see a lot of the growth out of both of our kids. I've been thankful just to get to a couple of the appointments. You know, I do have to miss some of them, right? Because I can't just always I can't just
Yeah.
always skip work. Bummer. Um, but before that, so when I was attached to a seagoing command, my wife was pregnant with Graceland, and I think I didn't leave there until she was closer to maybe two.
Mhm.
So that first 2 years were pretty difficult, especially when Graceland turned one. She had gotten sick. She was actually in the hospital for about 3 weeks, I think
Oh,
maybe even
wow.
a little closer to four.
Wow.
Um, and that's actually when we initially learned of her epilepsy diagnosis.
Okay.
So the first 2 years were pretty tough. Outside of even the epilepsy diagnosis, just kind of not being home and wondering if everything was going to be all right.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm constantly like full of anxiety, like worrying about the kids,
Hmm.
like that something's going to happen to them. Like my daughter likes to go and pick up sticks at the playground. And I'm like, no, just
Yeah.
you're gonna poke yourself in the eye. And like that's one of my fears. Like I'm gonna poke something in my eye. But like I want them to go and have fun, but I don't I want them to be safe and be cautious, but at the same time, like I worry about them constantly. So
Yeah.
and I feel like it would add like a whole nother level of anxiety, like if they had like epilepsy or
Mhm.
autism or something like that, like it would add just that much more on top of what I've already experienced. So I don't even know what that would be like.
Yeah, it's funny, or no, maybe not funny, but you mentioned that, so we, I shouldn't say used to, we still try to get to the public playground as much as we can. We actually have a couple of them by us. It's
Mhm.
awesome. But when we take the kids to the playground, and not that the average parent doesn't do this, right? I'm sure the average parent is just generally anxious because they care for their kid. But
Yeah.
when we go to the public and there's 30, 40 other people there, or, however many, we are watching our kids like hawks,
Hmm.
because I mean, sometimes they just, kids just don't know better. But our son Jack will just run off with a stranger because he thinks he's going to go have fun, right? Like,
Oh
so I mean,
man.
we got to be like right behind him, and I don't mind. It's not a hassle, right? Like I would do that for as long as I needed to, but
Yeah.
as much as you kind of said, like I just want him to go be a kid. We just got to take like those extra two steps to make sure, like, hey, mate, he's being a kid, but he's still being safe.
Yeah. Like my daughter is luckily very cautious. She's not just going to go off with anybody, but
Mhm.
my son, he's only one. I'm still in that baby phase. Like he can walk and he's just putting everything in his mouth, and
Yeah.
it's all sorts of fun. I know, I'm sure you remember it. I mean, you've been through it twice.
Yeah.
So I'm very anxious for him to get a little bit older to where he's like my daughter's age now, to where he's like 3.5, 4 years old. And like I can throw him around a little bit. And like today I was just
Right,
throwing him
right.
up in the air a little bit and playing, and then he threw up on me. I'm like, okay, cool. So like I can't wait to like power bomb him onto the bed and like just
Yeah.
like have that fun like dad son playful time. Like, and I have that with my daughter, but I'm also a little bit more careful with her, not because she's a girl, but because she's my firstborn.
Hmm.
And I get like not rough, but like we play and stuff, and then my wife says be careful with her, whatever. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but I can't wait for him to get a little bit older to where I don't have to like watch him like a hawk on top of him,
Right.
and to where I can like play with him a little bit more, as opposed to just making sure he doesn't kill himself.
Right. Yeah. And same thing. It's I kind of wrestle with my son all the time, and it actually usually ends up in me being the bad guy because he'll get hurt and I'll be in trouble. But he loves I mean he loves it in the time, right? Like we'll wrestle or whatever. And then my daughter will come over. She's like, Daddy, wrestle with me. And it's like, no, like I don't, you're just like you said, you're my little girl. I don't want to wrestle with you. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, they love it.
When she was, I think, I don't know, 3, maybe a little bit younger, she would want to do, after getting out of the shower, she would want to do like, no, it was probably a little bit before that because my son wasn't around. So she was probably like 2.5. But when we would get out of the shower and like I get her dressed, and she would want to do like being thrown on the bed. So
Hmm.
she would say, so I would make up like little games and stuff. Like I would make her be Spider-Man. So I would like pick her up and like have her climb up the wall and then just swing her, swing her, swing her, and then just throw her on the bed. And I did like 8 different versions of that with superheroes. And eventually, like I forgot which one would do which. Like Spider-Man was easy, but I can't remember what Hulk did and what Thor did. And so, but she loved being just thrown around and played with. But I mean, I was always careful. I wasn't throwing her like over the bed, but those were some really fun times. And it's weird that she still remembers doing all that stuff and she still asks for it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see what you're saying. It blows my mind what kids in general remember, right? Like I try
Yeah.
to think of things I was doing when I was 5 or 6. Like, I mean, I can't remember. Maybe it's just me, but granted it's a little closer for them to remember. But I never would have thought my 6-year-old daughter remembered stuff from when she was 3.
Yeah,
It's mind blowing.
it's insane. Like she would remember something like, do you remember when my friend whatever was threw a rock at me? And I'm like, you were like almost 2. How do you remember that? Like, let's not have that be a core memory. Let's get past that. Don't worry about that. But it's wild how much they remember, and it's just like some kind of insignificant thing, but they're just, and I say it all the time, they're little sponges right now. So
Oh
like
yeah,
we're staying with my wife's family, and their daughters are older. They're 12 and 16, I believe. And so they're a little bit older, and they use words that my 4-year-old probably should not be using, and nothing
sure,
bad,
yeah,
but saying like, oh no, shut up, you didn't want to do that. And I don't want my kid saying shut up at school when she starts this year.
right, right.
So it's like trying to curb that and tell her, look, you don't always have to copy what the older girls do. And that's been a challenge for me lately. It's just a little sponge that picks up everything around her, and it's not always good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely bite you in the butt.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about what, when the kids are finally asleep. Um, what do you guys like to do for fun? You and your wife, Katie, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. What do you guys like to do for fun when, or at least to decompress and relax at the end of the day?
So I don't know, maybe our latest thing. So the quickest thing or the first thing we'll do is try to catch up on, some TV shows. We I don't know if infamously is the right word, but we like to call it trash TV, right? Like, so we'll watch 90 Day Fiance is our big thing right now.
Yep.
My wife has somehow gotten me hooked on it. Like she just watched the first couple seasons and it'd be on in the background and I would just catch an episode or two, but now we watch it every week. um and there's, I guess, a couple spin-offs on that season, so we watch a lot of that. And we used to be really big on The Office. Like we probably in an unhealthy manner watched The Office. I want to say close to like 30 times over. We just loved the show. Like we couldn't get enough of it. It was it was a good show. And we just don't watch it anymore actually because it's not on Netflix. Like we have the DVDs, but it's not as
Yeah, it's
convenient. It's not as convenient to watch. You got to pop the disc in and out,
yeah, it's so
Uh,
weird how like put like getting a show or movies on DVD was like such a revolutionary and cool thing, and now it's such a
yeah.
hassle to actually put it in wherever you're gonna watch it, as opposed to just oh I can stream
Yep.
something and like if it's not on there, okay, then I'll watch something else. It's kind of weird how it's changed like that.
Yeah, like oh, like God forbid, we got to get up and change the disc out. It's funny, like the things we complain about now.
Yeah, really. So, what are your thoughts on the last two seasons? I think it's two, maybe three seasons after Steve Carell left.
Ooh. So I actually really enjoyed when, man, I should know this better.
Will Ferrell.
No, so I didn't like when Will Ferrell was the manager,
Okay.
and the guy who,
Yeah. The
with
guy
the
that's on the
glasses.
blacklist.
Yeah, what the heck's his name?
Um. Oh, he's one of my favorites too. Ultron. It's killing me.
I know he calls himself the Lizard King in the show,
Yes.
but I guess either way, I'm sure people will figure it out. I actually really like that part of it. Not better than Steve Carell, I guess, of course, but
Yeah.
I thought that was a good recovery. And then I did not like when Andy took over. I thought that was really bad as well.
Yeah.
Um, and then the last couple episodes where Dwight was manager, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't like that just because it was Dwight.
I felt like the show immediately dropped off after Steve Carell left. There's like a couple instances that were good, like the Will Ferrell doing the invisible juggling to bring me
Yeah,
to life.
it
I
was pretty
thought
good.
that was
Yeah.
very, very funny. It's gonna kill me now that I can't think of his name, and he's one of my favorites too.
I know it's Robert California in the show, but
Robert Cal, yeah. All of that was very forgettable to me, except the I am the Lizard King part
yeah, that
and where
was
they went to his house one time. Like those are the only parts that I remember, and that was maybe half a season, so I don't really remember
Mhm.
any of that.
Yeah,
And everything after that, I thought I won't even rewatch. But the last two episodes make it all worthwhile.
yeah. Last two
Um,
were really strong.
Dwight's bachelor party and the wedding, which it just brought it all together. I felt like it was old writing, like somebody left and they brought somebody back in to write those two episodes because it was so
Right.
worth it. So,
Yeah.
did you guys ever watch Parks and Rec?
So we did watch Parks and Rec. So I know I personally watched it one time through. I mean, I think I felt the same way about Parks and Rec as I did The Office. I
Mhm.
don't recall how many seasons, but the first handful of seasons were good. But when they merged the two offices, I forget because I watched so long ago, but they merged like the Parks and Rec department with whatever the other department was. I felt like that was the same as when Steve Carell left in The Office. It just wasn't the same.
Do you mean like when they merged Pawnee and Eagleton?
Maybe that's what it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I feel okay. I can see that because it took like a different turn. Parks and Rec, I loved. I The first season is they were still finding their footing, but once what's his name, Ben and I can't. Okay, apparently today is I just can't think of any actors' names.
Yeah. I
But
think we're
when,
both done.
but when Ben and Chris come in, I feel like that's when the show took a very stark turning point towards straight up. It was so much better after that. But I loved it all the way through. Like that was one of the ones that I really enjoyed all the way through after that point. Rather, do you guys watch any like drama shows like Ozark, Peaky Blinders, anything like that?
So we actually did watch Peaky Blinders. I think we watched at least the first two seasons, and actually, I don't know why we stopped. I think maybe we may have just started another show, but I mean, from what I remember, Peaky Blinders is an extremely good show.
Hmm.
I know we briefly watched Ozark as well, and by briefly, I think I may have watched the first couple episodes, and I think maybe I just never caught on to it. But as far as other dramas, not that I can think of off the top of my head. Um, I'm personally more of I guess, comedy.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess that's where I got The Office from. Um, but yeah, no other dramas I can think of off the top of my head, at least.
We like I used to I was in a position where I could watch a bunch of shows because I had the time to, because like I would work midnights and I could bang out a whole bunch of shows at night when it was quiet. But I'm not in that situation anymore, so I don't get to watch anything really anymore. Like I catch up on shows on my lunch break now. That's pretty
Right.
much how I have to watch TV. And like I'll watch shows that my wife isn't interested in, like, and without her, but usually her and I are watching, we'll like pick one show. Like her and I want to watch Yellowstone because we hear a lot of really good stuff about that.
Yeah.
But like Ozark, like you said, I'm in the same boat. Like I watched the first two seasons and then I just immediately stopped caring. Not that it wasn't good. I just there's just so much, and it's Ozark is a slow burn. Like it takes you the entire season. It's great, but you got to put in the time to do it. And I just don't have the time. Nothing against the show. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
Do you guys watch any like stand-ups or anything like that, like comedy stand-ups?
Um, so we would, um, but we wouldn't go out of our way, I guess you could say, right? Like, so
Hmm.
we absolutely watched Dave Chappelle's most recent one on Netflix.
Yep.
We both thought it was like absolutely hilarious
Oh, I
and
love it.
almost in all capacities. But unless it's something, I guess I don't know if you want to call that mainstream or something easily accessible,
Yeah.
we'll watch it. But yeah, we don't, we won't go like digging for any kind of stand up. No,
And
no reason.
and it's hard because everybody has different tastes when it comes to stand up.
Yeah.
Like there's one guy that my wife and I really like. He's very dry, but he's clean. He doesn't curse. He doesn't get into anything foul or anything like that, which I'm okay with too. But I like the fact that he can be as funny as he is without going that route. His name is Nate Bargatze. He's
Okay.
got, I think, two specials on Netflix now. The second one I didn't love so much, but the first one is fantastic. But and it's cute because you can tell that he's very much so like a dad. Like he has his daughter who's probably like 8 or 9 introduce him at the beginning of every special,
Oh, really?
which is really cute.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, we like watching those, and like we listen to that stuff all the way up on the drive up here to North Carolina from Florida. So that took a few hours out of our drive. So I
Yeah.
don't I never got into like the trash TV stuff. Like the only thing, because I don't like reality TV stuff. Like I never got into it. The only thing that we ever do is America's Got Talent. Like I never got into like 90 Day Fiance and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I would either, and I mean, I don't like. I guess it's just on, and I mean, I'm not a huge TV person to begin with, so I guess just because it's on, maybe that's how I just took a liking to it. But I mean, you just see just see some of these crazy things that these people do. I don't know. It's just intriguing, I guess. I don't know. They're willing to travel halfway across the world to find out they were catfished or something. Like, I don't know. I mean, I hate to see that happen to somebody, but it's you get a kick out of it, I guess.
I can appreciate that though. It's like it's kind of like the stuff that you're not going to put on, but if it happens to be on, it's going to suck you in. Like one of those
Yeah, yeah.
like terrible like Lifetime movies
Right. Yeah.
where the girl is like dating some new guy and he's killed a whole bunch of people. I don't know. Okay, I don't watch Lifetime movies, so I can't describe it very well. But when I was at work and the girls would have like the Lifetime movies on, and I just be on my phone or be working or whatever, and then they'd be watching this and talking about it, and then eventually I would just start watching. I'm like, well, he didn't put the knife back in the drawer. That's got to mean something.
Yeah, I haven't. I've escaped those. Thankfully we don't watch those here. But man, I remember watching them all the time in my parents' house growing up. My mom was, big on the Lifetime, and I think even Hallmark movies were kind of, I guess, wacky like that.
um, so as I mentioned before, I am in a new state. I'm in a whole new environment where everything's different. It's where we luckily we just we're under contract for a house, which is incredibly difficult nowadays. Like I thought it was bad in Florida, but it is way worse in this general area. And the Triangle is what I've realized it's called. Um, but we're lucky enough that we are under contract for a house, and there's some stuff that I realize that has to be done in the house. Not very much, and I'm probably gonna like pay somebody to do it, but I always wish that I had that like kind of handy training, like to where I can go and fix things, something that's more than just like putting batteries in the thermostat or something like that.
Right.
But are you a handy guy at all? Like do you do stuff like that around the house?
Yeah. Yeah, and I by no means would call myself like a handyman. I think just over the years, like, so we've been in our current house for 4 years
Hmm.
now, maybe five. Um, and I mean, the Navy or the military, we don't doesn't pay very well. We get by obviously, but so we've kind of had no choice but to try to figure some things out on our own. So like for example, and I guess maybe this isn't in the house, but we did build our own shed. Now
Oh,
granted, we
nice.
we bought it as a kit. All the pieces came and we put it up ourselves, and it took pretty long. And it took me about a month to put together, but thankfully we didn't need it. But being able to do stuff like that is nice because we probably saved. I mean, a couple grand and paying
Yeah.
somebody in labor to do it. And then we do small things around the house, like, and again, I wouldn't say it's anything complicated, but we've done everything from replacing toilets to ceiling fans to we ripped up flooring. That's the easy part. We didn't place it back in. But I'm pretty confident we could have put the flooring back in if we wanted to. I think that
Yeah.
was more of a time constraint than anything. And a combination of the kids. You just have kids crawling on you while trying to put flooring in.
Yeah, I can't imagine like having like a 2-year-old, 3-year-old like walking around, say,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
stay over there. And they're like, well, I'm two. I'm gonna do whatever I want to. I'm gonna go
right,
step
yeah,
all over this
yeah. So,
unfinished floor.
sometimes you got to get a professional in there because they can do it significantly faster. But yeah, I mean, I really do enjoy trying to get my hands on around stuff around the house to fix it. One, because it saves money, and two, it just kind of feels good to be able to fix your own stuff. I guess you guys like a pride thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and I mean, even my wife has been knocking stuff out of the park. Like, she refurbishes furniture, she's repainting the bathrooms. Yeah, we just try to do everything as much as we can on our own. It's kind of nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And then, and like you said, I feel like there's a great sense of pride. Like whenever you walk by something or walk on something, or like, I did that. I didn't pay somebody to do that. I did that
Yeah,
myself. It's your own labor that goes into the house to make it your home kind of thing.
yeah,
Were you taught anything like that as a kid? Because when I was growing up, like my dad was always working. He was in law enforcement, so he was always working. My mom was the one to raise. I'm one of four, so she was always the one to raise us, and she was actually more handy than my dad, um, because she like worked in a hardware store when she was younger. So I kind of like learned like the difference between Phillips and flathead screwdrivers.
yeah.
But after that, like it was everything was pretty much taken care of by my mom. Like I didn't get any kind of like training when it comes to like fixing anything. I never got anything like that. So did you have anything like that? Did you have any prior knowledge, or
Um,
maybe in the Navy did they teach you like how to fix stuff, or like because I never got anything like that.
I would say prior to the Navy, not really. And I would say so. My father was an auto mechanic, um, and he did what he could around the house. I mean, even outside of cars.
Hmm.
But typically, if we needed, I guess we'll say plumbing, for example, done, he would, essentially trade his trade with a buddy of his who was a plumber. His buddy would come over, do the job. I'm sure either for free at an extremely reduced rate, and then
Yeah.
he would essentially return the favor. So, we never had like the, here, son, come learn this, but we definitely had the opportunity to just see those things and kind of learn like, okay, so this is how you turn off the valve for water or
Yeah.
something like that. And then in the Navy, no, I never specifically, taught or trained how to, I mean, we do maintenance, absolutely, but um, kind of just being, so I served on, or yeah, served on submarines, and just seeing how certain things function from day to day life, you kind of just pick up like, you just kind of pick up basic skills on
Yeah.
maintaining equipment essentially.
I mean, and that's gonna transition and like maintaining equipment like just like at home, but it's not
Mhm.
like it's the same kind of stuff. Like you don't have a submarine in the basement that you're
Right.
they're gonna
Yeah.
have to try and like fix. But I think about that now. Like I would love to teach my kids how to do basic stuff, and even I don't know that. Like I just started a new job, and one of the things I won't get too much into it, but one of the things is telling people like, hey, check your toilet for leaks. Like that may be
Mhm.
why your water bill is super high. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how would I know if your toilet was leaking? I wouldn't know if mine was. So I looked up like how a toilet works because I
Mhm.
never knew. Like, and like you flush the toilet and you leave. I've never stopped to think like maybe I should figure out how this works so I could fix it in the future if it ever breaks.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
or if it's running, okay, like jiggle the handle, it's fixed. Okay, then leave, go on about your day. So it was like 2 or 3 days ago. I'm like, maybe I should figure out how a toilet works so I can better help these people that I'm talking to. And I realized like there's a lot that I don't know. Like if that's something super basic, and like I don't know anything about electrical, I've shocked myself several times, and I said, you know what? No, I'm
Same.
gonna call
I mean,
somebody.
yeah, that's kind of where I draw the line. I mean, like
Yeah,
I've replaced a couple ceiling fans. In my opinion, that's super easy. It's just really just I think it's like 3 or 4 wires depending on the fan, whatever.
yeah.
But we had a couple outlets go bad in the kitchen. I was like, man, I told my wife, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to do this, but I'm really not sure. Like, right? So we paid a professional for that one. Um, I kind of, like you said, I kind of draw the line at major excuse me, major electricity.
So like, I feel like I know what I can do around the house, and it's basic stuff. And I know where my limitations are and where I should draw the line. Like I know that
Mhm.
I'm not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So I'll call somebody. Like it may be a little bit of money, but if I can Google something on how to do it, I'll go that route.
Yeah.
But if I know where to draw the line and say I'm probably gonna get hurt or break it worse, so I'm gonna call somebody. I'm gonna count that as a win. No,
Yeah.
know my limits.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it helps if something's not an emergency, right? Like if I guess, like you said, if your toilet was leaking and there was no flood, right? Like maybe you could afford to take the hour to try to figure out how to fix it, right? As opposed to just calling
Yeah,
somebody who's going to
exactly.
charge you $500 or whatever it is to fix
Yeah,
it,
for
right?
sure.
Like that helps.
Do you ever encounter something that you don't know how to do, or do you enjoy like to figure it out, or do you see it as like, oh, God, there's something else to fix?
Um, no, yeah, I think I've learned how to enjoy figuring it out. Maybe had you asked me that, 8 years ago, I think it would have been extremely frustrating just to like, man, I gotta waste time trying to figure this out. But now I find myself, so our next like small project is we've got a couple flower beds in the side of our house, and we're gonna rip them out and just fill them with concrete. It
Hmm.
doesn't sound anything crazy, but I mean, I've never laid concrete. I've never set up an area to lay the concrete. Um, so I kind of find it, I don't want to say fascinating, but like it's exciting to like, all right, we got to figure out how to do this because why pay someone to lay concrete when we could probably do this ourselves, right?
Yeah,
Like, so yeah, like I said, nowadays it's kind of nice to try and have, it's nice to have the time to try to figure that kind of stuff out.
yeah, and that's awesome. I that's one of the things that I'm like, I have no time for anything because I'm constantly hovering over the baby, and
Yeah, yeah, it's
I'm
tough.
it's constantly like trying to make sure that he doesn't fall down the stairs, or like today he had a penny in his mouth. I'm like, how did you even find this? Like where did this even come from? And he's teething, and like their sleeping schedules are all off because we're in a new place, so like it's constantly like hovering over him, and there's no time to just sit and relax. And at the same time I feel bad because I want to go and play with my daughter, and I'm exhausted from the normal house stuff or getting home from work, but I want to go and play with my daughter, but I can't because
Right, right.
I want to give my wife a break who's had the kids all day long, and I have to watch him. Like that's priority. Like my daughter can play by herself, he can't. He's gonna immediately try to kill himself as soon as somebody takes their eyes off of him. And we're in a house that's not baby proof, so I feel bad when like he's broken a bunch of stuff already, like pulling like cords down, like he broke glass the other day. So I
Attaboy.
feel bad that like I can't spend the time with her or my wife because when it's baby, I hate the term baby duty as a parent because it's always baby duty. Like that's your duty to watch the
Right.
baby. So
Yeah.
but I can't wait for that when they're a little bit older, or sorry, when he's a little bit older and he can be a little bit more self-sufficient, and we will have that time, like not to watch a TV show but like to spend together to where it's not making sure you don't die, but making sure that you're having fun and growing up. So
Yeah. Totally understand.
when did you kind of feel like, well, I know your situation is a little bit different because your kids require a little bit extra attention
Mhm.
for certain things, but was there a certain point when you realized that you could not watch them for a couple of seconds because I still haven't gotten like I got there with my daughter, but not with my son, and it's weird going from 1 to 2. So I'm in a whole new ball game too.
Um, I mean, so we're at that point now, or at least, yeah, I would say we're at that point now. I to speak for myself, I guess, of course, I think I got to the point where I could take my eyes off him for more than 2 minutes. Was probably, I think so. Our daughter would have been about 3-ish, maybe a little older when she finally came off epilepsy medication. So
Uh,
probably about a year after that was when I became kind of comfortable. Like, okay, I don't have to watch you like 24/7.
yeah.
So yeah, and so she would have been roughly 4, and our son would have been roughly 2 at the time.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that's probably about right, I guess.
Because I'm trying to think of when I would remember when it was just my daughter and after shower time, like I would give her a shower or it all blurs together, but I would put her on the couch like after she took a shower and I would go take a shower and I'd have like the
Mhm.
camera watching her from in the family room and she'd be watching YouTube or something at the time. We
Right.
did away with that, but she'd be watching something on TV and I'd have the camera watching her as I'm trying to take my shower and I'm like scrubbing my arms and everything, like just watching her make sure she's okay. And I feel like it was around like 2.5 for her. Um, so I feel like we got like another year and a half to of you know this toughness, but
Mhm.
it flies by. Like, and it's weird to say, but like I'm living in it, and every day is super long and it's super difficult. But before I knew it, my daughter's 4, and we let her out on the trampoline, jumping by herself.
Do you have a like a full size trampoline, I guess, if that's the right question, or is it like like a small one, or?
No, no, no. So the house that we're staying in, my wife's cousins, I guess now my cousins too. No, they have a full size trampoline and they have the netting around it as well.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah,
I
nice.
don't worry about her falling off. And I've every time that I've been out there with her, jumping or not, I told her to stay off the blue part, which is the edging, because I don't want her
Sure.
foot to go through. And actually, a couple episodes ago, one of my best friends growing up, Danny, when he had a full size trampoline, I accidentally jumped him up too high and he fell on the blue part and fell off and broke his arm, which he
Oh,
doesn't
very
blame me
nice.
for, but I always blame myself for. So I always tell my daughter to stay off the blue part of the trampoline.
It happens.
And it's wild now that we got our own house. One of the questions is, do you or are you going to have a trampoline? And I'm like, I didn't realize that was a question for homeowners insurance.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
insurance. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's weird.
We had something similar. So I don't know if thankfully is the right word, but when we bought our house, there was a pool here already. And one of the questions for us was,
Is there,
is there a
yeah,
gate around your pool? Is it locked? And all that, and same thing. I was like, man, why do they
yeah,
care? And then I was like, oh, well, they probably care if there's a kid running around and
drowning.
jumps in the pool.
The drowning kids in
Yeah.
pools, that happens quite often,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, all the time.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad to be away from
Um,
the pool. We had a pool in South Florida, like everybody else does in South Florida, but we had a pool that we
mhm.
absolutely loved. But I'm so glad to be away from having to take care of the pool. Actually, the last year that we were in the house, my wife got somebody to come and clean the pool and take care of it, and I should have done it years ago. I could actually and just taking that responsibility away was is
Really?
just so much better because I would be out there every couple of days cleaning the leaves every week, doing the pool test and the
Sure, yeah.
chlorine and all that stuff. And once I just didn't have to take care of that anymore, once my son came around, it was just so much easier. Like if they were a little bit older, I wouldn't mind doing it, having them out there with me, but no, with them
Yeah.
so little, it was too much.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying with them being too little, but and I think you'd be right because now our kids are a little older. They don't, they kind of run around on their own a little bit, and that kind of gives us the time to take an hour or whatever it is to go clean
Yeah,
the pool
exactly.
if it was necessary. But yeah, I see what you're saying. If they're younger, it's kind of a pain
Yeah.
in the butt.
And like even with my nephew being down there, like uh almost he's 2.5, almost 3 now, but whenever they would come over, he just like you put him down and he darts right for the pool. Like just because he doesn't know any better. Like he says water, I want to go play in water. So
Right.
I knew like that was when my son came around, I'm like, no, we got to do something. Luckily, that was like not on my wish list, but I had been talking about like, man, I cannot do this anymore. And that was one of my Christmas gifts is that my wife got me the somebody to clean the pool for a while. So that was awesome. That was definitely worth it. All right. That's pretty much all I got for today. Steven, thank you very much for being on the show today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I like to give my guests the last words if they have any for the show. Kind of like your here's your soapbox. You get to say whatever you want to any dads out there listening, any parents out there listening. Here's your chance to say whatever you'd like. So, any last words for you?
Yeah, well, first off, definitely thanks again for having me here. Kind of feel like a celebrity. But and I guess not to be cliche, and I kind of mentioned it earlier in the episode, but everybody's just kind of out here winging it, right? Like no matter if your kids are special needs or not special needs, everybody's out here winging it. So just kind of keep doing the best that you can. Put your kids first, and everything will figure itself out.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Daddy.
Good night, baby.